The stars were quiet now. Once, they had burned with the chatter of countless civilizations, trade signals, diplomatic hails, warnings of war. But now, eons after Earth's fall, the heavens were still. Silent, save for the cold radiation of dead suns and the occasional whisper of a dying beacon that had long since lost its sender. Commander Elias Grant stared out of the viewport of the Eon horizon, humanity's last great survey cruiser, its silver hull cutting across the abyss. It was a ship built for endurance, not war, and after 3 centuries of wandering, it was beginning to creak like an old man's bones. Grant's reflection stared back at him in the glass mid-40s, hair flecked with gray, eyes of pale steel that had seen too much of empty space. He wasn't supposed to be here. None of them were. Earth was gone, its oceans boiled away in a war no one truly understood, its cities ground into ash. The survivors had scattered to the void, chasing the dream that somewhere out there was a second chance. But humanity had not thrived. It had merely endured. "Commander," said a voice behind him. It was Dr. Lila Harper, ship's linguist and one of the few civilians aboard. Her tone was unusually sharp, pulling him out of his brooding. "You need to see this." He turned, noting the glow of her datapad and the tension in her face. Lila was calm under pressure, always had been, but now there was something brittle in her voice. She led him quickly down the corridor toward the comms deck, where the faint hum of machinery grew louder. Ensign Marcus Wells, the youngest of the crew, sat at the primary console. His hands hovered over the interface as though he was afraid to touch it. "It came through the long-range array," he said quickly, looking up as Grant entered. "At first I thought it was random noise, but then, well, Dr. Harper decoded part of it." Grant crossed the deck in 3 strides. "Show me." Marcus tapped the console. A sound filled the room, static at first, but beneath it, something deliberate. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat slowed to a crawl. And then came the voice. It was faint, so faint that it seemed to come from the bones of the ship itself. "This is Earth Command, all stations, hold." And then silence again, devoured by the endless hiss of the void. The deck seemed to grow colder. "That's impossible," Grant said finally, his voice low. "Earth Command was destroyed almost 5,000 years ago." Lila shook her head. "It's not a ghost transmission. The signal isn't old. It's being broadcast now." Grant felt something twist in his gut. The idea was absurd. Humanity's homeworld was nothing but a radioactive cinder, but the data scrolling across the screen didn't lie. The message had originated from Sol Sector. From Earth. Could it be a trap? Marcus asked nervously. Some scavenger beacon, trying to lure in ships? Maybe, Grant said, though he didn't believe it. Or maybe it's worse. They all knew what worse meant. The war that had ended Earth had not been a war fought between nations. It had been something greater, something alien. No one had ever pieced together the full story, just fragments of orbital bombardment logs, fragments of enemy ships no one could identify, fragments of screams over crumbling comm networks. Humanity's killers had never been seen again. Until now, perhaps. Grant straightened, forcing his voice into the steel-hard calm of command. Set a course for Sol Sector. Best speed. Lila's eyes widened. Elias, that's suicide. The system is quarantined for a reason. We've been running for 5,000 years, he said, his voice quiet but fierce. If someone or something is broadcasting from Earth, we need to know why. We need to know who we are still running from. 3 days later, Eon Horizon slipped into Sol space like a ghost returning to its grave. The sight of the sun, paler now, older, stirred something deep in the crew. It was no longer the warm star that had once nurtured them. It was colder, crueler, as if it resented their return. Earth turned slowly below them, a scarred and blackened marble. The great oceans were gone, leaving cracked basins. The continents were burned nearly featureless, save for the jagged skeletons of what might have been mountains or shattered megacities. And yet, there was life of a sort. Clouds of radiation storms rolled across the surface, flickering like lightning in a dead sky. The signal was stronger here. It pulsed through the comm arrays, clearer now, like a voice just at the edge of understanding. Marcus' hands shook as he tuned the frequency, bringing it through. The voice came again, no longer faint but sharp enough to cut. Earth command to all stations. Static, then a sudden burst of words, fast and urgent. They are coming back. And then, abruptly, a new sound. Something like laughter. Lila's face went pale. That wasn't human. Grant turned to the viewport, his jaw tightening. Out there, beyond the dark horizon of the planet, something moved. At first he thought it was a fragment of debris, but then it shifted against the stars, deliberate, purposeful. And then another shape joined it. And another. Dozens of faint lights began to appear, like predators' eyes opening in the night. They heard us, Grant said quietly. And as the first of the shapes broke from the shadow of Earth and moved toward them, every alarm on the ship came alive. The alarm screamed through the UEN horizon, a shrill chorus that turned the cold silence of space into a battlefield. Multiple contacts, closing fast. Marcus Wells' voice cracked over the din, his hands flying across the console. They're fast, Commander. Faster than anything we've ever logged. Grant's jaw tightened as he gripped the back of Marcus' chair. Identify them. I can't, Marcus said, panic edging into his voice. Their transponders are dead. They're not broadcasting anything, no IFF, no comms, nothing. Lila's fingers danced across her console, pulling in visual data. The image that bloomed on the screen made the blood drain from her face. They weren't ships, at least, not in any human sense. The objects approaching were black, angular things that looked grown rather than built, each one sheathed in a shifting, oily sheen that seemed to drink in the light of the sun. They moved with a predatory grace, cutting across the void in perfect formation. They're alive, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Those things, they're alive. Grant didn't flinch. Battle stations, he ordered. Bring shields online. Sir, we're a survey cruiser, Marcus said, almost pleading. We're not built for a fight. We don't have a choice. The first of the shapes darted closer, its surface rippling with strange bioluminescence. It halted a mere kilometer from the horizon, hanging in space like a great, silent sentinel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the creature pulsed and a beam of light lanced across the gap, striking the horizon's shields. The ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flared red across the bridge. Shields at 70%. Marcus shouted. Another hit like that and we'll. Return fire, Grant snapped. The ship's railguns roared, spitting tungsten slugs into the void. They hit the creature squarely and passed through as though it were smoke. The thing rippled, then split into three, each smaller but moving twice as fast. They adapted, Lila said in a horrified whisper. They learned from the impact. Then we keep shooting until they stop learning. But even as Grant said it, he knew the truth, this wasn't a battle they could win. Whatever these things were, they had been waiting for someone to come back. Waiting for humanity to return. And now, humanity had stepped back into the trap. The creatures moved in unison now, circling the ship like wolves. Then one of them pulsed again, not a weapon this time, but a signal. Marcus' console lit up. They're broadcasting something. Low bandwidth. Very old code. Translate it, Grant ordered. The computer worked for a moment, sifting through millennia of forgotten languages, before a voice filled the bridge. You came back. The words were simple, flat, and emotionless, but they landed like a hammer blow. Lila's breath caught. It's English. Another pulse followed. You left us. And now you return. Do you seek forgiveness? Grant felt something hot and bitter twist in his chest. He thought of Earth burning. Of the final transmissions before the network went dark. Humanity had not left Earth by choice, they had fled in terror. This is Commander Elias Grant of the United Earth Navy, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. Identify yourselves. There was a long pause. Then the voice came again. We are the Wardens. We remained when you fled. We carried the message. Lila frowned, her mind racing. Carried, what message? The answer was chilling. The message you gave us. The last order from your kind. Hold. And suddenly, it made sense. These creatures, these living ships, had been left behind during the last days of the war. Humanity had built them, or perhaps twisted them from alien biology, and given them one final command: hold the line. Protect Earth. Forever. But 5,000 years had passed since that command was given. And somewhere along the way, the line between protector and predator had blurred. The nearest creature pulsed again, more urgently. The enemy returns. You will help us finish the war. Grant exchanged a grim look with Lila. What enemy? But the creatures didn't answer with words. Instead, they turned as one, facing the far edge of the system. And then, from the deep dark beyond Pluto's orbit, something stirred. Marcus' display lit with a cascade of contacts, hundreds of them. Sleek metallic shapes, moving in perfect silence, sliding into the system like a tide of knives. That's not possible, Marcus breathed. Those are ships. Alien warships. Lila's heart hammered. Elias, the message wasn't just for us. It was a warning. The creatures surrounding the horizon pulsed again, this time with something like urgency, almost fear. Help us. Or burn. The bridge went silent. Grant looked back to Earth, its blackened face turning slowly beneath them. For 5,000 years, humanity had hidden from its past, from the war that had shattered its cradle. Now, standing in the shadow of their ruined homeworld, they were being asked to choose: fight alongside the monsters they had created, or watch the last light of their species die. Grant clenched his jaw. There was no real choice. Not for him. Marcus, he said, his voice hard as steel, arm every weapon we've got. Lila, open a wideband transmission. All frequencies. Lila's fingers trembled slightly as she complied. You're going to broadcast? Yes. Grant's gaze never left the viewport. Beyond Earth, the alien fleet was drawing closer, formation perfect, silent as the grave. If this is humanity's last stand, he said quietly, then the galaxy's going to hear it. The calm light blinked green. Grant took a breath, then spoke into the mic. This is Commander Elias Grant of the United Earth Navy, he said, his voice carrying into the void. To all hostile forces approaching Sol, this is still our home. You want it back. His voice hardened. You'll have to go through us. The creatures seemed to hear him. Their bioluminescent skins flared like battle standards, and they began to move, taking up position around the horizon like an honor guard. And far out in the black, the first wave of enemy ships lit their drives. The war for Earth was about to begin again. The void ignited. The first wave of alien ships broke formation, surging forward like a tide of steel. They were dagger-shaped, their hull smooth and featureless, reflecting no light except the brief, sharp glint of engines firing. Commander Elias Grant stood braced on the bridge, every muscle tight as the UEN Horizon's engines screamed to life. The ship's ancient railguns spun up with a low, hungry whine, their barrels glowing faintly. Targets locked, Marcus said, sweat beading at his hairline. They're coming in hot, no comms, no hails. Straight attack vector. Then we meet them head-on, Grant said, his voice grim. Around them, the Wardens, those strange, living ships born of Earth's last desperate war, moved like predators unleashed. They streaked forward in perfect silence, their oily black hulls flaring with strange light. The alien fleet opened fire first. Lances of white-hot plasma streaked across the void, burning through the darkness. The Wardens moved with impossible precision, weaving and splitting, their bodies bending in ways no machine should. Some were struck and shattered, dissolving into clouds of glittering fragments, but most slipped through, closing the gap with terrifying speed. Return fire. Grant barked. The Horizon's guns thundered, each shot a glowing spear that ripped into the lead enemy vessel. The alien ship twisted as if alive, then tore apart in a brilliant flash. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short and sharp, but died just as quickly. For every enemy ship that fell, 3 more seemed to take its place. "They're trying to cut us off," Marcus said. "They're pushing us toward the planet." "Then we use the planet," Grant growled. "Bring us into low orbit, make them chase us through the gravity well. If they want to fight, we'll fight where we have the advantage." The horizon plunged toward Earth, skimming the upper layers of its toxic atmosphere. Lightning storms raged below, painting the burned surface with flashes of sickly green light. The wardens followed close, moving like a swarm around the human ship, their bodies shimmering as if energized by the proximity to their homeworld. "There, singing," Lila whispered. Grant glanced at her. "What?" "Listen." She brought up the calm feed. Beneath the roar of battle and the hiss of static, there was a low, resonant hum. The wardens were broadcasting not words, not exactly, but something deeper. A signal carried on a frequency that felt almost alive. "It's a battle hymn," Lila said softly. "They're remembering." Grant didn't have time to think about it. The alien fleet was closing fast, and now the entire planet seemed to tremble as if in answer to the violence above. Then, without warning, something extraordinary happened. The surface of Earth lit up. Not with fire, but with light. Lines of brilliance traced across the continents, carving glowing shapes into the dead world. They weren't random. They were patterns. Letters. Words. "This is impossible," Lila breathed. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the light of the planet below. "It's a message. The entire planet is transmitting." Marcus' voice shook. "Commander, we're getting a data stream massive, ancient, like nothing I've ever seen." "Decode it," Grant ordered. The computer worked furiously, and then, on the main screen, text began to scroll. "To all who find this world. We stood and we bled. If you read this, the enemy still hunts. We leave behind guardians. Fight with them or flee, but never yield. Earth stands, even in ash." Lila's hand flew to her mouth. It's humanity's last transmission." They turned the whole planet into a beacon. And as if to answer, the wardens roared, not with sound, but with light, their skins blazing brighter than ever. The alien fleet struck again, a full barrage meant to wipe them from the sky. The horizon shook violently as shields buckled. Panels blew out on the bridge, sparks raining like fiery snow. "We can't take another hit like that," Marcus shouted. Grant's face was grim, his knuckles white on the console. "Then we make sure there's no next hit. Give me full power to forward batteries." "Elias, that'll burn the guns out," Lila warned. "Then they'll burn with us." Marcus swallowed hard, then nodded and rerouted power. The ship's railguns screamed as they charged, the barrels glowing white-hot. "Target the lead battleship," Grant said. He waited until the enemy ship filled the screen, its dagger-like hull gleaming. Then he gave the order. "Fire!" The shot tore through space, a single incandescent lance that struck the battleship dead center. The alien vessel ruptured in a silent blossom of fire, debris scattering into the void. The rest of the fleet hesitated. And in that hesitation, the wardens struck. They swarmed the enemy ships, latching onto their hulls, tearing through metal like paper. For the first time, the enemy seemed to falter. Their perfect formation broke, ships scattering under the sudden onslaught. "Commander!" Marcus shouted. "They're retreating." Grant stared at the tactical display as, one by one, the alien ships turned and fled, sliding back toward the outer system, vanishing into the dark from which they came. On the bridge, no one spoke for a long time. The alarms fell silent. The only sound was the low hum of the wardens, now circling the horizon like watchful sentries. Lila broke the silence first. "They didn't just defend the planet," she said quietly. "They defended us. Even after all this time." "They were following orders," Grant said, though his voice had softened. "Maybe," Lila said. "Or maybe they remembered what it meant to be human." Grant turned toward the viewport, looking down at the glowing message still carved into the planet's surface. "We can't leave this buried again," he said finally. "The galaxy needs to know. Humanity isn't gone. Earth isn't gone. We're still here. He kept the calm, opening a wideband transmission that would carry far beyond Sol System, far beyond the scattered remnants of their species. "This is Commander Elias Grant of the United Earth Navy," he said, his voice steady, resolute. "To all who hear this, Earth still stands. We are no longer running. If you are human, come home. If you are foe." He let the silence hang for a heartbeat. "Know that we will hold the line." He cut the transmission. Below them, the planet's glow slowly faded, the words dimming but not disappearing. They would remain for anyone brave enough to return. Grant exhaled and looked to his crew. "Set course for high orbit. We've got work to do. If this is where humanity makes its stand, we'll need more than one ship." The horizon turned slowly, rising above the ruined world, its battered hull gleaming faintly in the light of a sun that seemed just a little brighter now. And for the first time in 5,000 years, Earth was not silent.